How's it going, everybody? So this is going to be a different style of video. This is the LG 83-inch G4. So because it kind of stands alone in this size for this performance, where there is no other competition for it, it's the only game in town. If you want something larger than 77-inch at a flagship level performance, it's the only option. So there really wasn't too much point in trying to do a comparison with this one and so on, but I do have a 65-inch G4 as well as 65-inch S95D and A95L, so I will be comparing those soon. Keep an eye out for that. So if you are interested in the overall performance of the TV, wait for that video or my G4 review, which is going to take some time. This is just a different type of video because I haven't done this before, but what I wanted to do was kind of go over the thought process that I had with going up from a 77-inch Samsung QD OLED to this 83-inch G4. I've been trying to move up from 77-inch size for years, but there hasn't been an 83 that equaled the performance of the smaller sizes until now. Also, the 83s before had uniformity issues, and this one really does not. Now, I did have a few installation concerns with this that I want to go over, something to kind of just think about when you're getting a new TV, especially one so large. For me, the mount that I've been using for years was a Sanus mount that you had to bring the TV to the wall, and one of the arms on it was starting to sag over time. So I decided to get a new mount, and while I was at that, I figured I'm going to go ahead and do new wiring and kind of clean up the wiring in my entertainment setup. I've got all new Ethernet cables, HDMI cables. I'm going to point the camera down here so you can kind of see it's just a huge mess back here. I can't really tell what wire goes where. I'm not trying to make it perfect, with wires tied down or anything like that, but I do want to be able to tell what devices, where the cables are coming from, because I change devices often. I don't plan on changing this TV for a long time, but I have in the past changed TVs a lot, so all those wires just became a mess. And I also wanted to have all matching wires, and I went with Cable Matters HDMI cables. I've had many different HDMI 2.1 cables. These are my overall favorite for the price and the feel, like the design, the build quality, and they're very flexible, so I really like and recommend those cables. I'll put a link in the description for them. You can see right here just like all the wires that I have from the speakers, power cables, Ethernets, HDMIs, everything. It's just all kind of a big rat's nest back there. So I wanted to take care of that before putting up the new TV. And now at this point, if you're thinking, why did I buy a new wall mount when the G4 comes with a wall mount at the 77 and 83-inch size? Well, I actually was planning on using the included mount to begin with. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who reminded me that, there's a lot of installation concerns to think about with the included mount. It's really not a very flexible or use case mount that comes with the G4. You can see it here in this box as I'm pulling it out, but there's a lot of restrictions on being able to use this mount. Maybe LG in the future can work on a different mount that is just as slim, but with more installation options. So, I'm not really the install guy, so I ended up calling Brandon at Be The Installer and talking to him to get some advice, recommendations. And so he recommended the mount that I did end up getting. So it's still pretty slim, at about 1.5 inches or so from the wall. And it's also much easier for installation as it can pull out quite a far ways. I think it's 20-something inches. So it makes installing and hanging the TV a lot easier. It makes taking it down if you need to a lot easier, and so on. So I'm actually going to hand you off to Brandon here in a moment. But first, with the unboxing, you can see it comes packed very, very well. Here's the back of the TV with all the ports, and then you can see where at the bottom you have some holes for the optional stand that you can buy for the 77 and 83s. And while there is a cable routing channel back here, it is very small. cannot really fit a lot of wiring back here, which is another concern that I had, because I'm going to be running 3 or 4 HDMI cables, have USB devices, and Ethernet. So all of that is something to think about if you were to use the included mount. You can see here at the top, that's where the included mount would mount to the actual back of the TV, or you have the 4 holes for the vase mounting, which is what I'm going to use. But let me hand you off to Brandon and let him explain a little bit.
What's up, Classy? This is B the Installer, of course. How's everyone doing? Yes, the LG mount that comes with the Gallery Series or M Series TVs, it's pretty awesome if you can get it to work, but it doesn't always work for everyone. It's supposed to recess inside the TV, making it very flat to the wall, but if you have any sort of obstacles in your way, or some of the things that Classy has going on, it can be a pain in the butt. He has wood paneling on the wall, which makes it very challenging to want to destroy your wall or put a recessed box in or figure out where everything is aligned, because you're going to have to damage that wood paneling. And if it's not a permanent solution, then as soon as you take the TV off the wall, you're going to have a big hole in there. It's the same thing with HDMI cords. If you're going to run them inside the wall, you have to figure out how many cords you're going to want to run, and this TV is supposed to be flat. And if those cords can't be flat, then you're not going to benefit by having this LG mount tight to the wall, right? Or even that Gallery Series look. But I think that if your TV is in the end of a room, or if it's not going to be bypassed, if you're not walking down the side of it all the time, it's okay to have another type of mount that then gives you more flexibility. Another thing is the stud alignment. It only is 16 inches wide exactly. So if your studs are perfectly 8 inches off center each way, then you're good to go. I've done that before where it's worked out, but if not, then you have an issue. If it's like 4 inches one way or the other, then you have to decide whether or not you want to center the TV and only have it on one stud and some toggle bolts, or offset the TV to make it the most secure. Now, if you have a 65 inch or a 55 inch Gallery Series or M Series TV, you can probably get away with having one stud in the middle of this mount, because it's a pretty heavy duty mount from LG, but it's best to have 2 studs, one on each end, especially if you're going to have a 77 or like this, the 83 inch that Classy has. So he opted for a bigger, stronger mount to give him some space from the wall and to prevent it from having any kind of like safety issues. I think that was a pretty good idea. You lose the perfectly flush gallery look mount, but it's already hard to achieve that with the fat power cord it comes with, the HDMIs you have to run behind it, having a recessed box that may or may not be able to be done in your house if you rent or have wood paneling like this, and all these other factors. So really, it's still a TV that you're going to just mount on the wall, and you got to figure out a way to do it. And I think Classy chose a pretty good way to do it in this instance. So check out my channel. I will have some more G4 videos, and I want to thank Classy for having me in the video. See you guys later.
Thank you for that, Brandon. I wanted to have him explain to you guys kind of the things to think about with that mount, because he deals with this stuff a whole lot more than I do. But moving on now. So now we're looking at the G4 after installation. You can see it's not perfectly flush against the wall, but it is a very small area back there. So like I think it's about 1.5 inches, which is, with the amount of wires that I have, I can't really get much closer to the wall than that. Now I did also hide the wires through, you can see below the TV, the little brown things that kind of match the wall a little bit. Those wire channels come in either white, black, or this faux wood look, so you can still have a pretty clean install there. Now I am showing the reflections here. LG has a coating that they call Vanta Black on the G3 and G4, and then here's how it compares with a QD OLED. I have my curtains and door open, lots of light pouring in. You can definitely see the reflections, but you also see how both of them are pretty comparable and do a pretty good job here of just kind of absorbing the reflections and not giving you a full mirror look. Now another thing that I did is I bought the Signature Series remote. This is the PM22 version of it. Now I thought that this would work with the TV, and it does, sort of, where every button does its function, but as soon as you click the wheel, the select button, it's going to try and pair the remote with the TV, and it just pops up and tells you that it's not compatible, even though, like I said, all the functions do work. So there is a PM23 which should work, but I haven't been able to find a store that sells that in the US, and it would be nice if LG just included the Signature remote with the G series, but they don't. Alright, while the door and curtains is open, I showed a little bit of Bluey, which is what my household now watches quite a bit of, and that's an SDR, gets plenty bright, able to drown out those reflections. Here I want to show the difference between what I had to what I have now, the 77-inch versus 83. Keep in mind the 83 is a few inches closer to the wall, so further away, so on the camera it's actually going to not look quite as much bigger as it is in person. Also, I tried to get the camera in the exact same position for these shots, but it might be a little bit off but it is pretty close. Now, while I wouldn't say going from 77 to 83 is a massive increase, it certainly is noticeable. You do feel it, especially whenever you're watching something that doesn't have black bars and it really fills up the whole screen. At least for me, at my seating distance of approximately 10 feet, I can really tell that difference, and it really fills the void that I've just been trying to get back, because I used to have an 85 inch and then I went down to 77 for OLED, and I've been stuck at 77 for years. The 83s came out in 2021, and each year since then they've been using the same panels with the same uniformity concerns, issues, and roughly the same performance. So it's now year 4 of 83s is where we finally get the new panel, new better power supply. It now has MLA, so now the 83s actually do match everything with the performance of the 77, 65, and 55. So it's now in line where I am comfortable and happy buying the 83. The downside is the price. Because it sits alone as a flagship with no competition, it is priced quite high. However, also keep in mind at $6,500 MSRP, it is still less than in 2021. The A90J 83-inch was $8,000 at launch, and the C1 from LG was $6,000. So pretty close in price to this. So putting that perspective into it a little bit, it's up to you to decide on value. I'd still say it's not a great value, but when you're buying a Halo product at the largest size, of course it's not going to be a good value, especially with the Samsung QD-OLED S89C that I had for 77 inches at $1,800. It's over 3 times the price, so it's not a good value proposition. But again, if you're like me and you've been waiting year after year after year to go up to something bigger than 77, and now you finally can, it makes swallowing that pill of paying a whole lot more that little bit easier. So I'm going to end here on gaming. The G3, as a lot of you probably know, the gaming performance was subpar. Basically, it was the same as the G2, maybe even the G1. Like, there really wasn't an improvement with game mode last year on the G3. And now with the G4, it does have the full color capability as outside of game mode. So you do really get a nice, good bump for gaming. So if gaming is a concern, that's another thing with the G4 that really does bring that big step for gaming. Alright, so let me know what you think of this video down in the comments. Like I said, it's a little bit different than my normal kind of videos, but don't worry, I will have G4 review and comparisons with other TVs using the 65 inch. This is just now my living room TV, so this is pretty much the last time you're going to see it. It's just going to be being used every day. So thank you all for watching. If this helped you out in some way, again, let me know down below, and I hope to see you all in the upcoming videos. Have a good one.